So there's a lot going on at the city. And when you're talking about priorities, I really believe that there are so many things that I've been involved with since I've been on the council in 2018 that they all seem like some priorities, but there are definitely some that are more urgent than others. I think affordable housing, as we all know, is pretty critical. It really does talk to the fact that housing is a human right, and I believe that is at the forefront of what the city believes. We have to have community input. It takes more than the government. So we have developers that come to our community and they develop beautiful buildings. We need them to always look at how can I offer some affordable housing, not across town, but in this property so that people have that experience of living where they want to live. We don't have control over rents by the state. Not that I'm suggesting control of rents by the state, but I do think that the state can potentially have conversations about how they can be effective in allowing local control and just for more options for affordable housing. The nation has been moving away from single family dwellings for a lot of reasons. Climate action is in some of those reasons, but also ensuring that there are more people able to live in a community with varying financial abilities and opportunities. And they know the needs of this community. And I just believe that there should be some like initiation by some of the developers that is they know the needs of this community. They know the heart of this community, not just council. And so that's what I continue to say to developers. You know, some developers don't ask for money. Okay, that's great. Thank you. Partner with us and look at our affordable housing needs within our community. But I do believe that still having educational opportunities and showing people because police do still have discretion on a lot of their interactions. Have you ever got pulled over when you know you were speeding or you ran a light and they say, I'm going to let you go? I've been pulled over and they've told me the same thing, and I was so thankful. So they have discretion, right? And I think just making sure that there's training to the police department, and we can include training that shows disproportionate rates that blacks are, and other minorities as well, are having at getting the citations um, from police officers. So I think no, I won't, and I don't believe any of our counselors will tell the police to look the other way. But I do believe that we can do some education to let them clearly see how disproportionate it is.
The broad brush thing, and the reason that I said that I've been running all along is to continue some of the good things that the direction the Iowa City Council has been taking in the last 4 to 6 years, to continue some of that work, but also to really keep pushing for things like economic equity, racial equity and justice, and social equity and justice. So those are sort of kind of like the overarching principles, that those are things we need to work on. So if we can either continue to get some fee in lieu when we can, and then build that pool of funds, so then we can look for other opportunities, work with partners to preserve affordable housing, rental opportunities, or work with developers to say this will be in perpetuity. We need something that's longer lasting than 10 years or 15 years or even 20 years when it comes to these kinds of affordable housing units. We often talk about policing in a community. What we really need to do is talk about public safety in a community, and I think that moving towards mental health specialists and social workers, and those kinds of people who have very specific and skill sets that you can't teach. They spend a lot of time, right, learning how to do this, a lot of education, a lot of training, moving towards a public safety as opposed to policing. The nice thing about Iowa City is we have an incredible culture and group of people who are not only dedicated environmentalists, but some extremely knowledgeable and well-educated environmentalists. And so I'm really looking forward to working with them, because I'm sure they've thought of things that haven't even crossed my mind, but we're willing to come in and make a pitch that we can do that will actually move that bubble a little bit. And who knows, maybe we can even set a good example for other communities as we also try and do our part to reduce our carbon footprint.
I got more politically involved, obviously, and then decided to run for council. And that opened up even more doors. And so I've become, more involved. And the latest thing that I have done that I'm particularly proud of is I co-founded what's known as Neighborhood Nests during COVID. And it stands for Nurturing Every Student Together Safely. And they were micro hubs for students at risk when the Iowa City School District was unable to provide, all the wraparound care that it normally does. That people were encountering challenges pre-COVID, but COVID sort of revealed them to a lot of people. And so the notion of saying, and I'm sure we've all said it at one time or another, of like, I can't wait to get back to normal. Oh my God, when do we not have to wear a mask? When can we see each other? The problem with that is that we can't go back because, as I say, COVID revealed inequities and obstacles and daily challenges that pre-existed. They were just exacerbated. And so my real sensibility for running for city council is to say, let's move forward. I have 3 that I've been talking about quite a bit. The first actually is more accessible, affordable childcare. It is not, it's been largely ignored, I think, until COVID in a lot of ways, because it, again, revealed and created, and it did create some problems, and I promise I'm not gonna go off on a tangent here. It's really complex, but the bottom line is that it is not simply a family issue or a woman's issue, and yet it's kind of been ignored, I suspect, because of that, right? And so I'm here to say loud and proud that women's issues are community issues. Childcare is something that affects every sector of our community. It affects businesses, it affects the educational system, because kiddos who go in who haven't been able to play and socialize and expand their executive functions, they go into kindergarten at a deficit, and it's difficult for them. And it certainly impacts families and daily stress. So that's one thing that I'm running on. The other, in fact, is, as I mentioned, I live in the South District, which is the southeast side of town, and historically and currently, it is not one of the more well-to-do neighborhoods. There's a great deal of community pride and a lot of grassroots efforts to, and I would say successfully, build a real neighborhood identity that we're very proud of. But there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And so I'm very much in favor of bringing much needed retail to the South District. I guess I just want to reiterate, even though childcare seems like something that it hits older folks or whatever, but it is an onion. And the thing is that it's not just a matter of, oh, littles need it or families need it. It's an entire profession that is massively underpaid and undercredited. And that's something too that I think we need to, in order to switch the narrative and to understand the important work, is that childcare has to be understood as professionalized. As much as it's a challenge to get childcare going, I also think there are so many opportunities that, again, will be more inclusive and actually raise more people up. You don't have to reject a job because you can't afford childcare. There's so many layers to this. So I just want to say that that's why it has to be talked about at a local level. So,
quick bio, I suppose, first. So I'm 45 years old. I've lived in eastern Iowa all but 3 years of my life. I'm from Fairfield originally, if you know where that is, about an hour south of here. That's where my hometown, where I grew up. Came here for my undergrad thing. So I'm currently vice chair of the Iowa City Human Rights Commission, where I've been on that for about 2 years, where I've been pretty engaged in some of the conversations around Black Lives Matter and restructuring the police and other things. In fact, I was the lead author for the Human Rights Commission statement on Black Lives Matter, which you can find on the Iowa City website as well. So I give you a sense for kind of, my thought process and how I write. I would be one vote on a council of 7. I think it's important to have an independent voice there and maybe represent some people that don't feel like one party or the other, represents them very well, and have that voice on council. housing insecurity is not just about, making housing cheaper. It's also, what is causing people to not be able to afford some of those things, whether it's employment, and which I think there's a couple things to that. One is helping people have barriers to employment. Two is, continue to grow our employment base here, right? Which we have done, and you've seen some of the natural increase in wages that we've had because of labor shortages. So some of that kind of supply-demand curve is working to some extent, right? I think the Iowa City Police Department is far from perfect. Our policing system is far from perfect, but relatively, I think we've got a pretty good police department. For instance, I've had conversations with residents that say, well, part of the reason why we've had this increase in gun violence is because of responding to police gun violence, and I question that because that police gun violence nationally is certainly an issue, right? And that's unquestioned that we're seeing evidence of that, and that's a conversation we need to be having as a country. But locally, I don't think we're seeing the same stats, or at least it's not the same thing as what we're seeing nationally. So the last time that an Iowa City police officer fired a round in the line of duty, other than a couple of animal control situations, the first time they fired it in line of duty with people was 2019, so 2 years ago, and that was 2 incidents that were non-lethal. Before that, it had been several years since an Iowa City police officer had fired a single round in the line of duty. So I don't think that our increase in gun violence is as a direct result of gun violence at least by the Iowa City Police Department. At least the data to me doesn't support that. Programs for rehabilitation and energy efficiency of some older homes is a critical one, and like I said, because to me I really like those kind of programs because it's a double whammy. It both helps people who are maybe of lower income with affordability, because and we can give them some incentives or some forgivable loans or do that work for them, so that they're not putting money out of their own pocket, and then their utility bills go down and their property values go up. Those are all good things, and we also get energy efficiency out of that, and which means that we're consuming less. So those are the kind of things it's really a win-win that I love. I like to think that with my background and my experience, I can bring a different voice. I think that all great teams, and I've been on many in the corporate world and so forth, the best teams are made of people that have different points of view, have diversity of opinions, and different experiences to bring to the table, because that's how you make the best decisions. It's how you make sure that you cover up for any blind spots or areas where you may not have a passion for, or that you're not seeing.